we have two sponsors here today that help make our lunch from Soul Mints possible. The Chamber could not exist without support from businesses like this, so our table sponsor is Family First Home Health and Hospice, and we have Libby Daves. She is the community liaison. She's also an ambassador to the Chamber. And Hunt County leadership.
Good afternoon, I'm Libby Daves with Family First Home Health. We have Lauren Birchfield here, she's with Family First Hospice. A lot of you may recognize our name, Family First. You may recognize our logo. You may even recognize our faces. But did you know we are a local family-owned business? We support many local businesses and organizations. We put our money back into our local community. Not only do we do home health and hospice, but we also provide non-emergency medical transportation, NEMT, and personal assisted services, PAS. Did you know with NEMT can provide rides to anyone in the community to non-emergency medical, medical appointments, family reunions, or local shopping? This helped members of our community fill the gaps in missing important appointments and social activities. You can schedule a ride with us for medical appointments, and it's covered through Medicaid. Did you know with PASS you can qualify for attendant services, which is paid also through Medicaid? These services may include cleaning, bathing, and meal preparation. You can also hire somebody that you know to apply to be your attendant. This allows people to receive help in their home with someone that they trust. Did you know that our home health is covered 100% under Medicare Part A, traditional Medicare? Sorry, Katie and all the insurance agents out there. When criteria is met. A recent medication change or dosage adjustment could be a great reason to consider home health. Did you know on hospice, according to research, patients live approximately 29 days longer when they do receive hospice compared to those that don't receive hospice services. We often hear from families that they wish they would have started hospice services sooner. Anyone can make a referral for hospice, even you. Family First is about our local community, so when you need home health, hospice, transportation, or personal assistance, call Family First. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Our luncheon sponsor today is Debbie Sickles, owner of Insurance Group of North Texas.
We are so blessed. We were in Suite C, which was just barely over 600 feet. We are now in Suite E and F at our same location, 8709 Wesley Street, known as Farrell Square. So if y'all want to know where we're at and you need insurance questions answered, y'all just come see us. You can enter at Suite F. Thank you.
I do have a few more individuals that I would like to recognize. So when I say your name, if you would like to wave or stand up. Chamber board members that are here today, we have Kelly Bullock, Family First Home Health and Hospice, David Ellis, Greenville Board of Development, Katie Ridge, Cornerstone Insurance, Vince Patterson, Prestige Integra Insurance, Miranda Spencer, American National Bank, David Weiland, Century 21 Patterson Agency. I believe that's it, that's in the room. Chamber ambassadors, we have 46 ambassadors this year, so if you're wanting to be ambassador and be recognized in the community as a volunteer, they're cream of the crop. They are so great and wonderful. And Daniel and Cameron and I could not run the chamber without them. We are very grateful to our ambassadors. So our ambassadors that are here today, Deanna Bates with Terry Driggers Realty Services, Chris Manuel, GEUS, where's Chris? Right there, yeah. Sheila Ellis, Altrusa, Casey Ralston at Home Texas Real Estate, Katie Ridge, Cornerstone Insurance, you'll hear some of these names several times, Libby Days, Family First Home Health and Hospice, Leanne Bledsoe, Farmers Insurance, she was over there, Rose Hayden, Hunt Regional Healthcare, David Ellis, Greenville Board of Development, Roxanne Turner, Turtle Creek Financial Group, David Weiland, Century 21 Patterson Agency, Tammy Schaefer, All Tams Builders Plus, Tanya Garman, American National Bank. Hannah Bywater, Red River Credit Union. Tracy Fenton, Britex Bubbles LLC. Debbie Sickles Insurance Group of North Texas. Kelly Ledford, American National Bank. Millicent Akufo with OA Property Developers. Misty Goodwin, Money Law and Title. And Shelley Bjork is our new ambassador, Bjork, which is Shelley Bjork Realtors. I have to get that name too, just like Tammy. So give them a big hand. Ambassador Bjork. Some of our young professionals are here today, so that's an alliance through the chamber, and they meet twice a month, once for happy hour, once for networking, and the other time is for a professional meeting. Sometimes they meet with leaders in the community, and sometimes they go out to businesses and tour them. So today we have Chris Mangle with GEUS is here, Kelly Ledford with American National Bank, Justin Henry with Money Law and Title, and that group, you have to be 19 to 39 years old. Well, Daniels and Taylor, he's in charge of it, but I'm fixing to say your name. So if you're over 39, you're too old to be in the group. But if you would like to join them, they have a fun group. There's about 25 of them, and they are great. So if you are interested in being in that group, do see Daniel Taylor over here. He's our director of events and in charge of the GYP is what we call them. Then we have a few people from Hunt County Leadership. They are graduating next week, so they will be the 2023 graduates of Hunt County Leadership. Aaron Clark with Alliance Bank. David Wyman, the Century 21 Patterson Agency. Libby Days and Warren Birchfield with Family First Home Health and Hospice. Jimmy Dickey with GEUS. Where's Jimmy at? All right, there we go. And Dennis Carpenter with Wildcatters Development. There's Dennis over there. So our business investors that are in the room, Platinum Investor is Quality Care ER, Gold Investor Alliance Bank, our Sapphire Investor American National Bank, our Silver Investors All Camps Builders Plus, Cornerstone Insurance, Family First Home Health and Hospice, GEUS, Hunt Regional Healthcare, Money Law and Title, and Solvay Composite Materials. Our bronze investors that are here today, At Home Texas Real Estate and Wildcatters Realty Partners. Our city manager is here, Summer Sparlocks, you can wave. Terry Jones, our Hunt County Sheriff, is here. You can wave, Terry. And then we also have two candidates from Greenville running to fill the vacancy in the Texas House, and they are both here today, Brent Money and Doug Rosart. Barry Gluck is over here, and then I've said David's name several times, but they are the Greenville Board of Development. Before we begin, we actually have two nonprofits in the room in Greenville that assist with helping those affected by human trafficking, which is why we are here today. So I'd like to invite them up to speak for a few minutes on their efforts. First, we have Theresa Sadler, the Executive Director of the Rafa Clinic and a member of the Rotary Noon Club.
Good afternoon. I will just take for just a few minutes to update you guys on some of the local anti-trafficking efforts that we're seeing. And I am the Executive Director of Rafa Clinic, which is a nonprofit pregnancy center, as well as Rafa Family Center, which is a parent education and counseling center here in Greenville. And obviously through the work of dealing with families in crisis or dealing with criminal cases, CPS cases, we see victims of trafficking. And we serve about 20 counties in Northeast Texas. So you can imagine the magnitude of some of the cases that come through our doors. And it was actually through this work that my eyes became open to the trafficking going on in our community. And it's organizations like we're going to hear from later that we were able to partner with and be educated by. And so it was also the need of needing resources that I took to Rotary. Along with Katie Ridge, we had heard a few things going on in our community and said, what can we be doing as Rotarians to help fight the anti-trafficking, or help educate in anti-trafficking to fight the trafficking going on in our community? And we started focusing just on education. And because what we found is how many people, business owners, and people like those that I'm looking at right now, who said, I had no idea this was going on in my community. This doesn't happen in Greenville, Texas. And as someone who's lived in Greenville, Texas for a number of years and worked in downtown Greenville for decades now, I can guarantee you it's happening right here. Our Four Corners area right here by McDonald's is one of the ones that we target through some of the community efforts that we're seeing. And just to let you know, Rotary right now is focusing. We have a satellite club that's working right now. It's actually being reabsorbed back into the big club. But we are trying to educate. And one of the best ways we can do that is by partnering with organizations like you're going to hear about today. So please listen to what they say. They know what they're talking about. But also, you guys can do a part as business owners, because our Attorney General puts out a lot of educational material. And I put some of these on the table as you walked in. If you have not grabbed these, this is just a simple poster. If you have a business, put this in your restrooms, your men's room and your women's restrooms. Put them on the back of stalls. It's just a simple way to report. And what we've heard over and over from law enforcement in the education that we've received as a community is if you see something, say something. You may think it's not a big deal. You may think it's just, oh, well, I just had this weird feeling, but say something. You won't get in trouble for saying something, but you may be that piece or that little bit of information that they needed to kind of push them over the line or be able to confirm a suspicion. This can be someone in your neighborhood. It can be a kid in your school. These are things that allow someone to speak out. You can do it anonymously, and you can do it just by scanning an app in the privacy of a bathroom stall. So this is a very simple way our community can get involved and make a way for people to reach out. And I left these out here. I'm also going to put my card. Take as many as you want. I put 100 out there for today, but I'm going to put my card. And if you want these, just contact me. I'll print them off and bring them to your business. I don't mind doing that at all. But another thing I just wanted to say is we have efforts going on right now through some of our local churches and through some of the efforts of Rotary, where once a month we have a church group and a group of volunteers who go out to different motels at that Four Corners area. They've been doing this for almost a year now, and they go one Saturday a month, and they bring toiletry items, they bring hot meals. And I'll tell you, the first couple of months that they went out, they hardly got any interaction at all, because you have to build trust, right? So, but then the same people showing up month after month and starting to build trust, all of a sudden we could start visualizing and seeing who the players were, so to speak, who the people in charge were of the girls and the guys who were being trafficked out of these hotels. And so once you kind of got the little head nod and they realized we're safe, then they let them start coming. And it's not we're making some big effort to get them out of the life, because that's not what they want to hear yet. We're just building relationship and trust and providing physical needs like feminine hygiene products, food, toiletries, fresh underwear, fresh clothing. And these are ways you can give back to. So one of the ways what we're asking is there's a different need every month, and we try to focus on a different thing every month and providing food as well. So if you can just grab some Walmart gift cards, Berkshire's gift cards, things like that, you can drop them off at the chamber, right? Or you can drop them off at Rafa, and I'll make sure they get into the hands of the people who need them. And then what we're doing is we're able to start building trust, so when that girl or that guy is ready to get out of that life, they built trust with somebody who has no expectation of them except to help them. And then we in turn can connect them with organizations like you're going to hear about today. So please just, and if you're a praying person, pray for those outreaches, because they need your covering for safety, but also just for God to lead the way so that they can see what's coming and they can build trust. So grab your posters on the way out, grab some Walmart gift cards, and listen to your next speaker.
Thank you, Teresa. And next from our community, we have Melisha Jones with Altrusa International in Greenville to speak about their efforts.
Hello, hope everyone's having a great day so far. I'm Melisha Jones, and I'm with Altrusa Greenville, and I have been a part of a special committee for the Age 21 Walk for Freedom. Age 21 is a global organization that helps rescue victims from human trafficking. They provide them a safe place to stay, counseling, and means for these victims to get back on their feet. Altrusa Greenville began supporting Age 21 in 2017 when past President Julie Witzel had heard of the organization and wanted us to help by raising funds for them. we started the Blue Jar campaign. So at our 2 monthly meetings, these jars are set out, and we encourage our members to give their loose change, and we have done this for 4 years. So every year in October, A21 does a global walk to raise awareness for human trafficking. They encourage their groups and clubs to do the same in their communities. So 3 years ago, our current service chair member, Tammy Odell, wanted to do the walk to raise awareness in our community. We asked local businesses for items for goodie bags to help bring people to the walk. Our first walk was held at the Greenville Sports Park. We walked around the park holding our signs. We had a guest speaker. We handed out information. And last year, we moved our walk to downtown at the courthouse. We did the goodie bags, and we asked for donations, and we walked around the courthouse. At the stop signs, or the stop lights, we had large signs, and we had members standing at the corners so those that were stopped could read our signs and could be aware of human trafficking. So this year, our A20 walk will be held on Saturday, October 14th, and will be at the courthouse again. So be on the lookout for information on our Altruisa Facebook page and in the Herald Banner. Also, A21 has a book to teach children what to do if they're approached by a stranger. So our goal is to raise funds for each kindergartner in the Greenville ISD to get one of these books. And hopefully, our future goal is going to be for every kindergartner in Hunt County to have a book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. At this time, I'd like to introduce Stacy Montgomery, and is Kelly Cravens coming up also, with Shepherd's Watch Foundation to tell us about the existence of human sex trafficking in our community.
Hello, hello.
You're just for videotape.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay.
You didn't do that part.
Okay, that's okay. Hi, everybody. What a great group. We could not be more thrilled or honored to be here, so thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Shelley, for inviting us to speak to your great group. And I want to thank Theresa and Katie for your continued and constant support. We thank you so much. My name is Stacy Montgomery. I am the president of Shepherd's Watch Foundation. We are a nonprofit that fights sex trafficking, which includes child sex trafficking. We're a little different than most nonprofits because we are a boots on the ground organization. We are a group of licensed professional private investigators that helps law enforcement go track down the bad guys and help the victims. And we also we started a coalition, which we'll get into in just a second, but we're just a little bit different than most nonprofits. My colleague here, Kelly, she's actually our founder and our lead investigator. Woohoo! And you'll get to hear from her. She's gonna conduct the second part of the presentation. So Kelly and I talk to thousands and thousands of people all the time about sex trafficking, and we hear more often than not that we do not have a sex trafficking problem in our city. Well, like Theresa mentioned, you have a sex trafficking problem in your city. It doesn't matter if you have a city that has 200 people. It's everywhere, unfortunately, and we just need everybody's help to try to fight this atrocity. So I'm gonna go ahead and go right into the presentation, whenever we get it up. There is a little bit of sensitive content in here. I want to give you that disclaimer real quick. We actually usually have some photos, which we did not include this time. We do a lot of presentations to law enforcement where we include photos. They're not nude photos, but we did not include those this time. You can go to the next slide, please. So our content today, we're going to do a brief intro on who Shepherd's Watch is, which I kind of did already, and what is sex trafficking. Most people know what that is. We're going to go through some stats. Stats are never accurate because it's very underreported. I want to go into that, but people really need to see stats, so we'll go into that just a little bit. We're going to do some general and Texas-specific stats. And then we're going to go into indicators, how to recognize a potential victim. And then I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and she's going to talk about how to identify predators and do a deep dive into investigations and what she runs into. And how we got founded, why Kelly started this 3 years ago, is in her regular PI work. She's been a private investigator for over 20 years, and she's had her own PI firm for over 12 years. And she was running into child sex trafficking cases in her regular PI work and realized that there's a lot of help that's needed in that particular area because there's nowhere to take the victims. There's no emergency shelters, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit, but that's why she decided to found Shepherd's Watch Foundation. And then we'll do a quick summary about our mission and how you guys can help us make an impact, and then we'll do a Q&A. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course we envision a society that's aware of what sex trafficking is, and we of course want to help all of the victims and the survivors get back to their full potential. That's our mission statement. What we do, again, we focus primarily on investigative intelligence. Kelly has a whole team. Her team consists of ex-military, ex-FBI, ex-law enforcement. And like I said, we're boots on the ground, and we assist law enforcement with investigative intelligence on trafficking. We also do awareness and education, which is pretty much what we're doing today. And then advocacy and network services. Katie and Theresa are part of NETAT, which is Northeast Texas Alliance Against Trafficking. We founded that a little bit over a year ago, I believe. We decided that Northeast Texas needed a coalition to come together because everybody was kind of doing their own thing and nobody was working together. We need emergency shelters. We need restoration services. We need law enforcement to work with us as well. We need victim services, all different types of things that we need. And so we built the coalition to bring all the different organizations together so that we can work together and fight sex trafficking. And part of NETAT is also restoration, which I mentioned, victim services and shelters. Identification. Identification is a pillar where it's just law enforcement and the PI team, and the hotlines that people call if they suspect sex trafficking. We just now started our street advocacy program on tribal reservations in Oklahoma. And administrative and financial, which is our least favorite thing to talk about, so we won't go into that. That's about needing money and day-to-day operations. Next slide, please. So what is sex trafficking? I think most people know what it is. I won't read this whole thing, but basically it's the trade of sexual slaves. Sex trafficking is human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. I do want to point out the point here that if it's a minor, it does not matter what it is. If it's a minor, even without force, fraud, or coercion, it's considered trafficking if it's a minor. You can look this up online. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some stats, and again, like I said, it is so underreported, but I know people need stats to kind of like bring it around. But it is sex trafficking, I'm sure you've heard this on the news, is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. It's, of course, been reported in all 50 states. The average age is 15 years for females, and it's believed to be even younger for males. 55% of survivors have reported that they were attending school, elementary or high school, during their exploitation. And 44% of those reported that no one reached out for an offer to help. And as I keep saying, it's very widely unreported, and Kelly will even go into that a little bit in her presentation. Next slide, please. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually victimized. These stats are from the Department of Public Safety Crimes Against Persons Division, which we work very closely with. We were actually here for a class here in February, actually in this particular room, last February. Over 917,000 registered sex offenders are reported, and then 53,000 are non-compliant. Non-compliant, an example of that is if they move and don't tell their parole officer. Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry a year, 90 billion is sex trafficking. There's over 150,000 new escort ads posted online every single day, and many are trafficked children. And the victims report that they are abused by over 10 online buyers a day. Next slide, please. Okay, and here's the age breakdown. Over 52% of the world's sex trafficking victims are in North America. 51% are 20 years old or younger. 84% are females. 15% are males, and 1% are transgender. But as you can see, that 33% over here, ages 9 to 17. It's not a good statistic there. Next slide, please. Okay, these are a little bit old stats, and please don't let this fool you because, again, it's very unreported, but this is Texas specific, and you can get this on the Texas Attorney General website. But you can see there's arrest, and then how many are actually convicted and deferred and dismissed. But I wanted to point out on this slide that Texas was the first state to make buying sex a felony. Woohoo, Texas! And 750 plus years in prison sentences for human traffickers since 2016. So woohoo, Texas! Texas is one of the best. Even though we are second for sex trafficking, at least we're trying to solve the problem. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned that we were in this room last February, this is last February. There's a class called IPC, the Introduction for the Protection of Children, that the Department of Public Safety does, primarily for law enforcement, but others that can attend are first responders, park rangers. Those particular individuals are going to be out in the public a lot and may see a potential trafficking victim or a scenario. But what they do is they do prevention and investigation and rescue. And they have, DPS has fusion centers. They have 80 in the USA. They have 8 in Texas alone. What these fusion centers, what they do is they have all the different law enforcement agencies under one roof. And this is where you can report potential if you think there's a trafficking situation going on. And what that's called is SARS, Suspicious Activity Report. You can call it in, or you can go online and fill out a report if you don't want to talk to anybody. Like Theresa was saying, you're not going to get in trouble. Report it if you think there's something going on, because they will investigate it. This is the best place to report suspicious activity. These guys are absolutely great. Like I said, EMS, firefighters, NGOs, and park rangers. So particular NGOs, which is non-government organization or nonprofits like ours that fight sex trafficking are allowed to go to the IPC training. So I encourage all of you, if you know anybody that's law enforcement, EMS, firefighter, et cetera, encourage them to go online on DPS and look for a class that's coming up. They have a lot of different classes. They even have them in Oklahoma right now. They had one in St. Croix right before they came to Greenville. And so when the teachers got here, we're like, I know you were just in St. Croix, but you're in Greenville now. But if you have over 50 people that you think will attend, they will come and do the 2-day class for free. Okay? So I encourage you, if you have any questions about that, my cards are on the table. You can call me and I'll help you with that. But it's multidisciplinary training. So law enforcement, victim services comes in and talks to the group. Prosecutors come, the DA, CPS, Child Protective Services comes and talks. And like I mentioned, we were here February 21st and 22nd, actually in this room. But we have these upcoming classes coming up that are already scheduled that you can register for if you're law enforcement or EMS, et cetera. Garland is, 45 minutes away? September 6th to 7th. So in short, what this IPC training is about is how to recognize if you're in the presence of a victim. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are indicators. There's different indicators depending on who you are, but broadly, indicators for the community. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can kind of read through these, but you can see these indicators. If they don't have their own ID, cell phone, or money, if they're acting a little weird, if they have injuries or signs of physical abuse, signs of substance abuse, signs of branding or tattoos. Pimps love to brand their property. And especially if it's someone's name, a saying, or a symbol that's the tattoo. They have few possessions, no suitcase. They show fear, anxiety, depression, etc. This last one, use of unusual language. Date, you know what that means? Daddy. They have a quota they're supposed to meet every day. But this stable one is really bad to me. That's what the pimp calls his group. It's his stable, like a stable of horses, the group that he's in control over, the group of girls or boys that he's in control over. Next slide, please. And these are indicators for parents, caregivers, and educators. They're hiding their device screen from others. They freak out if they don't have access to the internet. They're withdrawing from their family and friends. Again, no access to Wi-Fi. They get agitated. They have unexplained cash, expensive jewelry, clothing, electronics, and purses. Again, changes in behavior, including tattoos. They have frequent missed days of school, which are sudden. This is a good one. Makes references to modeling or music video jobs, or about older friends. And of course, promiscuous behavior. Next slide, please. And I was in the travel industry for 34 years. Started American Airlines when I was 19 years old. So, of course, the travel industry, I mean, Delta Airlines and Hilton, they've trained all of their employees on how to identify a potential victim because it's so rampant. The Super Bowl is the biggest sex trafficking place every year. But the indicators for the hospitality industry, of course, hotel room that multiple men are frequenting, checking in with a minor or groups of girls that do not appear to be their child or children, a girl being dropped off while a driver waits in the parking lot, that's a big red flag. They may not know their current date, time, or location. They're not allowed to speak. Most of the time, they're not even allowed to speak. And then, of course, all the other indicators that we stated earlier on the previous 2 slides. Next slide, please. So if you guys want to take a snapshot of this, this is how you report suspicious activity. The Texas Fusion Center. And this actually goes to the iWatch Texas site. So they all talked amongst themselves, which is great. Let me get out of everybody's way. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, wow, I'm already done. Okay, so I call Kelly the hunter. She hates it, but I call her the hunter. So I'm going to bring up Kelly, our founder. Give her a big round of applause. She's started all this. Thank you very much.
Wow, there's a lot of you in here. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank law enforcement. So if everybody could give a big round of applause for your officers because they are your first line of defense. They're amazing. Without them, we would be lost. And I will tell you this right now. These are the guys that stand between you and the bad guys every day. And they don't get the recognition that they deserve. What we're facing right now in this environment, everything changes within 24 hours, I always say, but the last 6 months has been crazy. The open border has impacted us in a way that you can't even imagine. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do. I will tell you that Hunt County has been very receptive to us. They were one of the first members of NETAT. We had 25 officers at our very first meeting. I've not ever seen any participation in any county like I have here. That means a lot for you guys sitting in this room. The reason that you do not have a worse problem is because of these guys. So remember that. And when I get to my point about talking about problem sites in North Texas, you will realize that you guys could have a lot worse problem if you didn't have officers that care so much. Okay, we talk about trafficking being a complicated issue. I'm going to go through this one pretty quick. I go places and I hear from people all the time, well, hey, Kelly, what are our statistics? Or, hey, we don't have a trafficking problem. You have to understand, in order to have a statistic, you have to have what's called a recordable. That means you have to have an offense report, an arrest, or an outcry. Now, many times girls and boys don't make outcries, especially if they're minors. If they are migrants and they are foreign to here, they're not going to make an outcry. So those recordables and those stats that you see on all of these presentations, they're really not real. The problem is much, much worse than that. And we don't have systems set up to gather these recordables. That's why supporting law enforcement, supporting your Children's Advocacy Center, supporting your first responders, your SANE nurses, your hospital staff is so important. Give them the programs that they need to get these recordables so you can start getting true numbers on the problems that you've got. That is very, very, very important. And everybody in this room, I'm going to empower you in a few minutes on how you can do that. Next, please. This is the online crisis. Now, things that we need to understand about trafficking is we think about that as hotels and, dirty pimps and street hookers, and we think that that's what trafficking is, right? No, trafficking is so many different things, but how they get into your bedroom, how they get into your house, how they get into million-dollar neighborhoods is a lot of times through online online exploitation of kids. When we go and talk to kids, we put it out there, a little bit of information. We just show really one slide. The rest of that time, we let the kids engage with us. We learn from them. Every time we go in a classroom, I learned something new. But I will tell you some of the commonalities are these right here: Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Discord. Who knows what Discord is? Okay, Discord is in the gaming community. What you don't understand is your kids are out there playing games, and as soon as they plug it in and put it online, they're playing games all over the United States, sometimes all over the world. And they're talking to people in those rooms that are called Discord, where they're talking about players and they're exchanging information, and they get suckered off into another chat room with someone, and that's how it begins. This is very real. And if you talk to kids, they will tell you that there's more often than not times when they're in the gaming community and somebody goes through Discord and starts trying to talk to them about sex. Fortnite, terrible. I know everybody's like, oh, but I love Fortnite. No, Fortnite online is a horrible, horrible area because it happens more often than not. Twitter, you wouldn't believe that Twitter's got their own Twitter space for sex trafficking, but they do. Omegle is actually an app that's set up where strangers talk to children. I can't think of a worse app than Omegle. Garage sale sites. Does that one get you? Yeah, did you know that they sell kids and sell women and men and transgender kids on garage sale sites? They do. One of the worst cases that I had, and I shouldn't say worst, I would say the biggest gut punch was in Canton, Texas. And it was a Sunday morning, and I was having my coffee, and I saw two girls that were for sale on First Monday Trade Day site. 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, what they did was they didn't post it to the regular post form. They did the My Story, Create Story, and that banner, went across my phone, and I was like, oh my God, really? And I mean, I speak a little Portuguese. I don't speak much Spanish, but I made out enough that it said will service you in hotels or your home, and I panicked. Next slide, please. This right here is talking about Spotify. Spotify, we have found that they have been uploading pictures, and they have been working with pedophiles, posting ads. There's a lot of warnings coming in from parents because Spotify, you would never believe that that was a bad app. It's a bad app. Next slide, please. Twitter, I just spoke to you about Twitter a minute ago. I had ads from Twitter, and this is before Elon Musk took it over, that a lot of them were overseas, but one of the biggest things I saw on Twitter was the sale of little boys in foreign countries. And the ads were explicit, the pictures were explicit. I was shocked that they would take down certain materials off of Twitter that didn't fit their, I guess, whatever it is that they were trying to promote, but they didn't take down these sex sites and they didn't take down the sex ads. Next. Okay, this part is probably going to blow some minds of some people, and other people will go, yeah, we figured that. Rural Texas is actually a big issue with trafficking, and the reason why is because we don't have the law enforcement numbers that the bigger cities do, the dedicated crimes unit task force to take on trafficking, but we also have a big, wider open space. So something like an RV park, would you think that that would be a trafficking hotspot? Well, if you go into some of these smaller towns, I'll give Merkel, Texas, for instance, in West Texas. Merkel, Texas, if you've ever been there, there's not much there, but they have a grocery store, and they have a Western store, and they have a lot of RV parks, because that's where a lot of construction goes down. What happens is the cartel drops the girls off with drugs and money, and they drop them off at the RV parks, and those girls go out and they start knocking on doors. Now, I know this for a fact because it happened to my significant other. I know this for a fact because it also happened to one of my clients. And I know this for a fact for talking to a DPS CID because I had a case that originated out of here. So pipeline utility construction projects, they're big targets for those guys. They know they're away from home and they've got money. And nobody's going to mess with those kids because 9 times out of 10, those vans belong to the cartel. So the sex workers rotate, meaning if we see an ad that comes up, I look at the timestamp on it, I got 72 hours as my window. 72 hours is my window that I've got to get on either side of that hotel with those law enforcement agencies to tell them what's coming. If you've got an RV park, you've got an Airbnb, private residences. What's interesting about this is we've had a paradigm shift in what we saw in trafficking as far as the hotels. In the bigger cities now, they're using $1 million homes. Yep, $1 million neighborhoods. Airbnbs, we have a trafficker right now that owns 10 houses I think 4 of those are used for Airbnbs, and they're trafficking out of those Airbnbs. And this is, Arlington, Garland, Plano, the Colony. Don't negate the fact that you see a small town and think you're safe. And that's what Stacy was kind of talking about. You're not safe. Everybody needs to be educated, especially in the small towns, because that's where they go to hide. They think no one's looking, and 9 times out of 10, they're not. Next slide, please. This was my ad. These 2 girls were for sale on first Monday ad. I blocked out their faces. I will never show you anything that's got nudity or bad language. I show this slide for the simple reason that you need to know that this is out there. This is real. This isn't me talking about someone else's work. This isn't me parroting someone else's speech. This is what happened with me as an investigator on a Sunday morning. These 2 girls were for sale on a garage sale site, and there were 3 garage sale sites that they registered to, and they were all Canton Trade Day specific. So when it came up on the My Story, the moderators didn't see it. So I took off and went to law enforcement, and of course, it's a Canton First Monday, so you can imagine how spread thin we are, right? Well, they know that. And I ended up with DPS CID. And I was, at that point, 72 hours in. So when I took the picture in, took the picture in and I sat down with the CID officer, I said, "What is about this picture do you see that upsets you?" And he said, "Well," and he's giving me all the specifics, "but there was one part of this photo that most people wouldn't catch, and that's the dirty shoes. For us that work in trafficking, we know what this means. And this means that this victim more than likely didn't make it. Because, to be frank, no one's gonna mess with the dirty kid. 17-year-old, 19-year-old pimps will clean up their girls with $5 flip-flops. When we see this and it's a migrant kid, they don't have long. And that puts up the panic bells. So what we try to educate with law enforcement is everything that you can see in a photo in just a few minutes, and the people that work investigative intelligence have to move quick because we don't have 5 days. Sometimes we don't have 5 hours. So we have to get this information over to law enforcement so they can get up rolling and do what they need to do. A lot of times, if you've got a string of hotels, you might have 10 in a town. We've got to figure out where they're at. This little girl right here is more than likely a minor. This girl right here, we found out later on, is she is a recruiter. She works for the cartel, because I did locate her later on. I never found this girl right here, and it broke my heart. I show this picture. This is my stinger. This is my case that will stick with me forever because I felt like I had her, and I missed her because I didn't get on it until it was 72 hours too late. Next slide, please. So, rural Texas ads and info. Some things that we need to understand when we start dealing with victims is that the open border has created a crisis of migrant sex workers, and many of these are minors. So you're dealing with a language barrier, you're dealing with resources, you're dealing with people that are able to identify these kids. When I hear people talk about trafficking and they say, well, the open border doesn't affect their nonprofit, I kind of cringe because we saw it immediately. And the nature of the ads changed. There were many of these that were just in Spanish only. There were many girls that were coming in. There were Colombian, Argentinian, Venezuelan, Honduran, Guatemalan, and they would say that in the ad. We also watched our cells that were popping in between the casinos in Oklahoma. Mind-blowing as it is, we saw Romanian, Ukrainian, Russian, and Armenian. And so we saw girls popping back and forth that were migrant. And the numbers went up consistently almost every week, every month. Everything changes in this business. By the time you see a slide, I can tell you I've probably updated it on a napkin sitting right there. But the emergency shelters that we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes are extremely important when it comes to the trafficking world. Because when an officer finds a child or an officer suspects something, if they haven't committed a crime, you can't detain them. But if you have reason to believe that there's something really going on, an emergency shelter gives a safe place for this officer to drop this individual off till they can figure out what's going on, especially if it's a migrant and trying to figure it out. A child that comes from another place and you don't really know what's going on with them, we need time to figure that out. That's time to get them medical triage, to get them case management, and we have the answer for this. We figured this out in Van Zandt County. Next slide, please. Okay, I already talked to you about the Merkel, Texas situation. El Paso, they had the Operation Lost Souls where they recovered 70 missing kids. Some of those were from Dallas, Fort Worth. And some of these kids were extremely young. You're talking 8 and 9 years old, guys. That's young. Next slide, please. So some of the current initiatives that we've got right now is we have an emergency shelter for minors and a forensic RV through the Van Zandt County Children's Advocacy Center. I won't tell you who told me no, but I approached several people in government and local governments, other different programs about the need for emergency shelters and why I felt that they were important to aid our law enforcement. And I was told, it wasn't an initiative. It wasn't a priority. So I got mad. And I was like, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. And we prayed a lot about it, and pretty soon the Children's Advocacy Center stepped in and said, well, we'll do it. I was like, what? I'm like, yeah, we've already got the compliance. We've got the forensic interviewers. We've got the SANE nurses, CPS, a relationship with the DA, the court, relationship with law enforcement. Let us do this. So we were able and lucky enough to find a donor, and we are going to be putting together the first emergency shelter in East Texas, and hopefully the first in the state through the Children's Advocacy Center. The cool thing about this is you can take this program and replicate it all across the state because almost every county has a Children's Advocacy Center. So pull in donors, pull in people that are able to work and volunteer and help with their time, and they'll be able to put these all over the state. Why these are important is, and I'll give you a fine example. We had a missing girl that we located. Again, law enforcement being as amazing as they were, on their day off, located this little girl. And it was 11:30 on a Saturday night, and CPS wouldn't take her. And she was 16 years old, but she was too close to 17. So they weren't going to take this little girl, and we didn't have anywhere for her to go. And that officer said to me, I'm not leaving her. I'm staying here until we find a place for this kid to go. And it was her day off. She's standing there in shorts and flip-flops. And I said, you know what? I said, we'll figure this out together. And she said, Kelly, we've got to find an answer for this. I can't keep having this happen. And the communication that she gave me that night, I made her a promise that I would figure this out. So we did. And I got to give her that call and say, hey, here in Canton, and I heard you. Actually, everybody heard you. And we don't need kids on the street. For any reason, it is not a safe place for them. We have people out there that will pick them up and victimize them, and they're going to promise them a better life, but it doesn't take long until they go down that rabbit hole of hell. Now, the reason I say why it's so important to get them off the street, we have kids in East Texas, and you all know of some, I'm sure, that live in a very poor environment, right? A terrible environment. And you've got kids that are using outhouses, kids that have clothes that don't fit, kids that are struggling to have food put on the table. You have somebody that comes in and says, oh, wait a minute, let me show you a better way. And they give them everything they want financially. They give them their hair done, their nails done, the nice clothes. They get to ride in cool cars. They get to stay in nice places. They don't think they're a victim. Isn't that sad? They're being sex trafficked and they don't think they're a victim. They think, wow, this is so much of a better life. I just got to do these few things. That's disgusting, and that's where we're at with a lot of these kids in the rural areas that are victimized, is they're lured into this life. And you're going to find them down at Legacy Hall, and they're going to be walking there with their handler or with their trafficker down there looking to make money. And a lot of those kids come from the rural areas. And people don't want to believe that that happens. Well, it does, and we know it does. We've seen it. We've worked with law enforcement on it. And the promise that I made to that officer was, we're going to figure this out. So As soon as this gets up and running, I promise you we will be here in Hunt County, and we will be talking to your advocacy center and saying, here is our template. Let us help you. And I hope everybody in this room takes that opportunity to support you back and make this happen, because your law enforcement needs a break, guys. They're worked hard, and we need to give them the ability to get back out on that street catching bad guys, not sitting there waiting for somebody to come pick this kid up, or waiting for somebody to find somebody to help them through CPS, or better yet, through ORR or HSI if it's a migrant kid. That's not the place that they need to be. They need to be out there fighting the crime and protecting us. Let a shelter take care of these kids. So the next thing we did is, street advocacy on the reservation. So we have a woman up in Oklahoma who is going to be going on the reservation. She's Cherokee. She'll be working with the casinos, and she is a forensic interviewer. She's CASA certified. She's been working with the tribes now for about 15 years, and she's now going to take the street advocate position for Shepherd's Watch to go out there and work on the reservations with these girls, because a lot of girls go missing off the reservation, and it's never, ever, ever reported. And we see a lot of that coming through the casinos, but they also get misplaced. They come off the reservation. They could come off Choctaw or Cherokee, Chickasaw Reservation in Oklahoma, and they can end up in San Diego. So she's going to go out there and start working with these tribes, and we're going to get them some help. We also have a new proprietary program, investigative intelligence tool, that's going to help us do our work. I'm a former engineer, so a little bit of a nerd. A little bit. But what we do is we use these tools to help us identify the traffickers and identify the victims. So when we hand off the packages to law enforcement, we back out. We're not interfering with their investigations, but we want to give them everything that we can so that they can start their own investigation, and we can shorten that window. Because by the time you identify somebody online, you got to realize by the time they get it and get to it, that window is broad. But if we can give them the package and everything that they need so that they can go do their job and knock it out of the ballpark, that's all we want. And we're not going to interfere at that point, because as we give them one, I promise you there's going to be 4 more behind that. So NETAT, that's our Alliance Against Trafficking. You're welcome to come. That's where we've got law enforcement, first responders, people in the community all talking and sharing information. We just felt like it was really important for the different counties to be working together and to share information. And we also wanted there to be a great relationship between the NGOs, the CAC, and law enforcement. And I feel like in your county that you guys have that right now, and very thankful for that. And we're very, very happy that they took the initiative, and thank you guys so much for coming. But I will tell you how you can help us right now is start empowering yourself. So if you're on the Economic Development Board, guess what? Start looking at the businesses that come in here. If you've got foot spas coming in, or you've got businesses that raise an eyebrow, start researching that before you rubber stamp it, okay? Real estate developers. Did you know that right now what we're seeing in trafficking is our traffickers are rinsing money through real estate? True story. We have $1 million houses. Would it surprise you that they didn't go through a title company or a lender? They paid cash in an attorney's office because they're rinsing money through real estate. They're running major operations out of $1 million homes down the street from people that have absolutely no idea what's going on. We do know this. It's our case. We've handed it off to DPS. We had to. It was 6 cities, 4 counties. And right now we're on, that's just in Texas, we have over 10 homes involved in that one ring. There's a second one that spun off of that, and we were able to pick up and identify 4 other states with rings connected to this one. That's how major this is. So how we did that and cracked that case was largely looking at the money laundering. So when we start looking at some of these businesses and the trafficking that goes on there, illicit massage business, or it is a trafficking ring that's operating out of an Airbnb, a lot of times the money laundering and the real estate transactions are a flag for us, and we can go in and we can start attaching the businesses that registers to these locations. You could have one house that's running 3 different escort sites out of there. Most people would never know that. But you guys have the power in this room, and each one of your businesses that you have, to start looking at things, and if it doesn't shake right, if it doesn't smell right, start looking at it. If you think you've got something that is really valid, take it to law enforcement. You know, if you're questioning something, submit a SARS report. If it's something that you need help with, call Shepherd's Watch. I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you to report it. If you see something, say something. I'd rather you be wrong and say something than let it go. Because that could be, what that means is that if you identify a house that you suspect trafficking is going on, that could mean 3 or 4 victims that night. You know, these things move fast. We are very well versed with a couple of our guys that are working at the border. They feed us information about the unaccompanied minor cells that come across. So, for instance, one month you might have Romanian gypsies, right? Romanian gypsies being the primarily biggest, largest group of minors coming across that border. These guys are in Roma. And then I have somebody that was up there in Eagle Pass. But in Roma, you know, that month we had Romanian gypsies. Well, we got a call from officers that said, hey, what do you know about Romanian gypsies and trafficking? Within a week. And I'm like, a little bit, what's going on? And they had a house in Fate, Texas, that the neighbors had reported this group of Romanian girls in expensive cars picking them up in the morning and dropping them off in the evening. So DPS was on it. They tried to, you know, get it. These guys moved in the middle of the night because that's what Romanian gypsies do. But we started seeing cell pockets of trafficking, trafficked girls that were Romanian gypsies popping up in different cities and different towns. So that's how this kind of works. So you have to be able to talk to one another, recognize what's going on, but if you see something, say something, because had those individuals, those neighbors, or those civic leaders, or those business owners not said anything, you would not have known that that was an unusual situation. You get a kid that comes in, is somebody that you can tell something's wrong, or they don't speak the language, a girl that's sitting there fidgeting, that's not making eye contact with you, somebody that's pulling their arm down that won't let them talk, or you see something that is just off, say something, please. Because you never know, that one case could pop off the lid of, you know, 5 different houses, 10 different houses, 3 different rings. It's very, very, very important, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and take a Q&A if you guys have any questions for me. Yes? That's going to depend on county to county, city to city, your DAs, how proactive your local law enforcement is. We have some counties, I'll be honest with you, they do this. They don't want it in their city. They don't want it, so they feel like if they don't recognize it and don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. We've been very fortunate with the groups that we've worked with that they're very proactive. You know, it is a felony in the state of Texas to purchase sex. But I will tell you that when people tell me that there is no trafficking in their city, I do this thing. It's kind of stinky. Go over there and I pull it up and I'm like, yep, well, you know what? You've 49 different sex sites. Actually, we've got 49 different sex sites trying to advertise for Greenville. Does that mean they're all in Greenville? No. But this is what they'll do. They'll advertise for a city and they'll drive. They'll drive those girls and drop them off, even if it's 30, 45 minutes, keeping them in a hotel for 3 or 4 days, traffic them out of that hotel and then bring them right back out. So the penalties, right now, they're setting up sting operations, you know, South Lake, Frisco, different cities trying to catch these guys at hotels. That does something good to scare guys off from hopefully answering ads, but it's not catching our traffickers, and that's what we really need to focus on, is getting these guys shut down. We are not going to solve the trafficking problem overnight, but we can do our best to disrupt it. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
This may be a Stacy question, but the link to the SARS reports that, I mean, we all see photos and everything, but one of the things that I think would be super helpful as we get more and more educated in this community is to have some kind of really cool post that says, this is where you report anything. I don't care what it is.
Right.
I know I've heard you talk about multiple times, and then I think it was, is it on, in Austin, one of the, I don't know, government website where there was a house right here somewhere in like Frisco or something that, you know, they were just, it was a cul-de-sac and they were just trafficking right out of this house. And thankfully the neighbors said, this is super weird, and reported it and, you know, crashed that huge ring. So I'd like to see some kind of social media media post that we can all go in and share with that reporting information, a link to report, so it's super easy, you just click on it.
Right, well, yeah, we'll definitely look into that. And I would like to say, Theresa, thank you so much for what you guys do, because, doing the outreach, you learn a lot. You learn a lot from school-age kids, you learn a lot from victims, you learn a lot from just setting yourself out there. You will get reports of information coming in that's going to help law enforcement do their job. And that's a very, very, very important thing in this dynamic. We hunt people, that's what we do. I mean, yeah, we have some other initiatives, but there were difficult initiatives that people didn't want to tackle, and we tackled it. But the majority of what our focus is doing the investigative intelligence to help law enforcement do their job. But the outreach part is huge. So, support your NGOs here doing outreach, whether it's a safe house, whether it's a church program, because you have to have those people engaging with the community, with the public, and with these girls themselves to let them know that there's a way out. And there's boys too. And I will say, we've got kids out there in this environment right now that are being trafficked. I've got kids that are being trafficked that are transgender. They're taking in 3 times the amount of money that a heterosexual child is taking in. Now that should blow your mind. That is the world that we live in. And we know it's for fact because we see it advertised on these sites, and that's not right. And, we've got to do the outreach ourselves with the NGOs and law enforcement, and we try to research that and connect the dots so that we've got NGOs talking to one another. But the outreach programs are very important to talk to these kids and get them to a safe place and get them case management so that they can turn their life around and they don't end up on that street for 5 years. If we get them early on, we got a really good chance of that. Yes, sir.
Kelly, my name is Bill Black. You may or may not have ever heard it, but I was on the CAC board of Van Zandt County, Rita coaches, and Vicky Stoffel. I don't know if you know that name. Folks, as business owners, I can tell you one of the biggest challenges is Van Zandt County is an example. It's a very small county, and they have a very small business environment. I mean, there's not a lot of business in Van Zandt County. And the CAC boards around the state are very underfunded, and they do fundraisers and they try to do things, and one of their biggest ways they raise money is bingo and other things, but they don't get the corporate sponsorship that they really need. These forensic auditors that they have are investigators, and what they do in going out in Van Zandt County, for example, they would go out to all the schools. And what she said about some law enforcement turning their head and turning away from it, there are some school districts that won't allow these people to come in and make a presentation to the school. And you hear the stories about how a kid will walk up to one of these people and tug on their sleeve. It'll break your heart. But they need money. They need support and they need money.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely, I totally 100% agree. I mean, these guys are out there doing the work, and when you see their case files, and it's just like with some law enforcement officers. My God, they've got case files of horrific crimes right here, and then I'm coming in going, hey. So the smaller towns, yeah, they're being matched right now. I mean, they're outmatched actually, and you as a community, I feel like it's your obligation to step in and help your community. Look, no one's coming to save us. I don't know if you guys have figured that out yet, but no one's coming to save us. And the way that we save ourselves and make our place a better place to live is to cause disruption to these rings, to cause disruption to these people that are moving these girls, boys through our community. And if we cause a disruption and we make it more as difficult as we can for them to set foot here, they're going to move on to the next county. And I know it's passing the buck. But I can tell you, when you go into bigger counties and bigger cities that have more resources to fight this, they have a better chance of getting something done than a smaller county that's chasing its tail because they're underfunded and they don't have the people and the system set in place. But when you have a community that cares, you'd be surprised what you can do. And like I said, Van Zandt County's CAC to stand up and take this on was huge. I sat there and cried. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I've been told no so many times. But, we'll set the pilot program there, and then we will be handing the template off here to you guys. And hopefully we can start setting these things up and finding funding. Corporate sponsorship is huge. Every little bit counts, whether it's $50, $500, $5,000. That's putting effort towards getting these programs up and running. And they do need our support because the federal government has cut back on a lot of these initiatives. And that makes it also a hardship when you have an open border as well. So we've got to support one another, but most importantly, please, please, please support your law enforcement. Those guys are out there every day. Your first responders, they're out there every day. They cannot unsee what they see when it comes to child abuse and child exploitation, enough as it is. You know, the trafficking side makes it just, I've talked to officers before that just have a hard time choking it back. And that to me breaks my heart, because they deserve better than this too. They deserve our support. And, you know, I've got guys that are working down at the border through DPS, and one of the people that I was, you know, doing some work with, she really got to me. She said, it takes me 2 weeks every time I come back from the border to start becoming normal again, from what I've seen. And the exploitation of children, she said, I've never seen anything like it. So thank you guys so much for having us, and we appreciate you. If you have any questions, please give us a shout. We'll do what we can to help you.
Did you have another slide that you wanted to show on anything? Okay.
We need funding. I'm not paying for money. No, we share funding, but we're helping CAC with the supply number, so funding for that. We don't do shelters, but we do partner with those that then we help others on that.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Kelly. I do want to remind you that we do have some drawings in just a moment, but I want to remind you that we have business before hours on Tuesday, and it's at North Texas Dentals from 7:30 to 9 in the morning. You can drop by there for 10 minutes. You can stay the whole time. You can come before work, and Prairie Coffee Company is going to be providing the breakfast and the coffee that morning, so yay. Has some giveaways to do.
All right, come here, Marcy. I'm gonna let you draw. Keep me honest. I want to just add something, if you don't know. Brad Keller, who's a great newspaper reporter, has reported that 2 of our criminal activity hotels have been shut down. Whirly first. Here it's just yard art. So those that came and visited our table found out that we were giving something pretty away. You draw. Ashley Hardline. She was here Wednesday at the business showcase and job fair, and so we only had like 4 or 5 tickets in there. We decided to give that away. So this is Laura. Okay. Laura Ashley Hardline. All right, one more. Okay. So I told you to be there, so we'll always give it away. Pamela. Huh? She's probably from Friday too. We're ready to draw another because one of y'all just knows something better. That's the way we are. Keeps us honest, right? Sheila, Shelley, yours. Yeah.
All right, we have a few more things too to give away. This right here, Debbie.
Yes.
All right. This is also from Insurance Group of North Texas. Dale, grab a card. Theresa Sadler, I swear she wins everything. Is she here? No, you spoke earlier. Hey, Lauren, will you draw one? Sunny from Tracy Custom Homes has a couple of giveaways. This is Fred, Every Day, Angels Chasing Cloud 9. One of these. Libby? Kim Clark. Yay, with American National Bank. Has another one from Sunny, Tracy Custom Homes. And then we have some giveaways from Shepherd's Watch.
We give away 3 different things. You choose what you want. You can have a hat. Nice. Shirt. There's one. So if you have whichever one you want, you just come see me afterwards for your size. Whichever one you want.
Libby, family first. Libby, woohoo! Steve Hoogland. Steve, is Steve here? Steve? Sonny? Sonny, all right, cool, Sonny. My name's Stacy Branton. Woo! Sorry. See me.
Anybody else have anything that they would like to say before we exit today? Having an event, anything going on? Business after hours at Home Texas Real Estate on Thursday, June 15th. That'll be at Home Texas Real Estate, 5 to 7. Once again, you can come for 10 minutes, you can come the whole time. They do a Mexican fiesta, so they will have tacos and margaritas and drinks, things like that. All right, anything else? Anything else? Okay, well, I hope everyone has an amazing day. Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by GEUS. GEUS is your community-owned provider for electric, internet, cable TV, and true local programming.